There is a quiet revolution happening inside you, a force often misunderstood, underestimated, and yet immeasurably powerful. It is the power of kindness, the hidden strength of a heart that feels more than most. Many think that to be sensitive is to be weak, that to care deeply is to invite hurt. But let me tell you, true power is never loud, and true strength is never aggressive. It lives in the stillness of understanding, in the courage to feel, in the ability to hold space for others without losing yourself. When kindness turns into power, it is not about control, manipulation, or dominance. It is about mastery of self and mastery of energy. Every time you listen without judgment, every time you respond instead of react, every time you extend compassion without expectation, you are exercising a force that moves mountains quietly. You are not bending to the world. You are shaping it with the integrity of your heart. The first step to this hidden strength is understanding that empathy is not a weakness. Feeling deeply is a gift, a divine lens through which you can see the truth of life and the hidden struggles of others. The super empath does not hide from emotions. They embrace them, study them, and transform them into wisdom. The world often teaches you to suppress this gift, to armor your heart, but the truly powerful know that armor dulls the edge of purpose. Real power is soft, it is aware, and it is unshakable because it comes from alignment with truth and love. Boundaries are the bridge between compassion and power. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Every act of kindness must be intentional, guided by discernment, not obligation. When you learn to say no with love, when you guard your energy fiercely yet gracefully, your kindness becomes magnetic. It does not scatter, it concentrates, it amplifies. It becomes a force that transforms relationships, communities, and ultimately the world around you. Emotional awareness is the secret weapon of the super empath. To feel deeply is one thing, but to understand deeply is another. When you recognize the currents of emotion flowing within and around you, you gain insight that most spend a lifetime searching for. You see patterns, you sense motives, you perceive truths that others overlook. This awareness is not for manipulation, it is for illumination. You hold a lantern in the darkness, and your light guides those who have lost their way. Your presence is healing. It is not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments of attentiveness, the soft words that land like a balm, the patient listening that makes another human feel seen, heard, and valued. Healing is not about fixing, it is about holding space. And there is unparalleled strength in holding space without fear, without expectation, without ego. The ripple of this presence extends far beyond what the eye can see. Life will test you. Intense emotions, heartbreak, and disappointment will attempt to dim your light. Yet every wave of feeling that comes your way can be transformed into resilience. Sensitivity is the soil in which strength grows, and with every challenge you are forging the inner steel of wisdom, patience, and unwavering courage. This is not just survival, it is ascension. And finally, purpose turns kindness into a force that cannot be contained. When your heart's compassion aligns with your vision, every action you take carries weight. Your kindness is no longer passive. It becomes intentional, transformational, unstoppable. You are not just surviving life. You are shaping it, lifting it, elevating it. This is the hidden strength of the true super empath, the ability to lead not by force, but by connection, to influence not by command, but by authenticity, to change not by imposition, but by love made tangible. So step into this power. Embrace your sensitivity, guard your energy, see with clarity, and act with purpose. Let kindness be your sword and empathy your shield. Let the world feel the quiet, unstoppable force of your heart. And remember, the strongest souls are those who can hold the universe within their compassion and still remain unbroken, luminous, and free. Empathy is often misunderstood. Many people look at someone who feels deeply and immediately label them as too sensitive, too soft, or even weak. Society conditions us to believe that strength comes from toughness, from the ability to remain detached, and from suppressing emotions. Yet this is a superficial and incomplete view of true power. Empathy is not a liability, it is one of the most profound forms of strength a human being can cultivate. It is a quiet, unassuming force that allows individuals to navigate the world with clarity, compassion, and influence. To feel deeply is to possess a lens through which the hidden currents of life become visible. While others may react with confusion or anger, an empath perceives the underlying emotional truths, the unspoken fears, the silent hopes, and the subtle tensions that shape human behavior. This insight is not just knowledge, it is power. Being an empath is not about being vulnerable in a naive sense. It is about sensitivity combined with awareness. When someone truly understands emotions, both their own and those of others, they gain an almost supernatural ability to respond appropriately to any situation. An empath can sense conflict before it erupts, detect pain before it is expressed, and offer guidance or solace that feels authentic and meaningful. This is a kind of strength that the world often overlooks because it does not rely on force, intimidation, or control. Instead, it relies on presence, attentiveness, and emotional intelligence. To master empathy is to master influence in the most authentic form, to shape environments and relationships through understanding rather than dominance. Empathy as strength also comes from the discipline of emotional regulation. Feeling deeply does not mean being overwhelmed or consumed by emotions. The super empath develops the skill to feel fully without being controlled by those feelings. They experience the pain of others and the joy of others as part of their own inner landscape, yet they do not lose themselves in it. This capacity for regulated empathy allows them to make decisions with wisdom and precision. When they act, it is neither impulsive nor reactive. Instead, their actions are deliberate, measured, and impactful, and they carry a resonance that commands respect without demanding it. Furthermore, the empath's strength is revealed in resilience. Because they feel so deeply, empaths encounter emotional challenges more acutely. They witness suffering, both within themselves and in the lives of others, in vivid and sometimes painful detail. Yet this exposure to the full spectrum of human emotion cultivates a profound inner fortitude. They learn endurance, patience, and the capacity to hold steady even when life becomes turbulent. Where others might crumble under pressure, the empath has trained their heart to absorb, process, and transform emotional energy into constructive action. Their sensitivity becomes a source of courage. Another dimension of this hidden strength is the ability to connect. Empaths can communicate on a level that transcends words. They see people, not lab. ELs, not appearances, not social masks. They respond to the essence of another human being, which fosters trust, loyalty, and deep bonds. These connections are not superficial. They are the foundation of influence that lasts. People are drawn to those who understand them genuinely, who recognize their struggles without judgment, and who can reflect back a sense of clarity and calm. In a world that often values noise over substance, the empath's quiet presence becomes a commanding force. Empathy also grants foresight. By reading emotional currents and subtle cues, the empath anticipates outcomes and navigates challenges with foresight that others rarely achieve. They understand the motivations and needs of those around them, allowing them to prevent conflicts, mediate disputes, and guide decisions in ways that honor all involved. This intuitive insight is a form of strategic strength that goes beyond intellect or technical skill. It is a wisdom born from deep emotional attunement. Ultimately, empathy is strength because it aligns one with life at a fundamental level. It allows a person to engage with reality authentically, to respond to challenges with awareness, and to influence the world without resorting to coercion. The empath becomes a vessel through which understanding, compassion, and purposeful action flow. This is the hidden power that transforms what the world often dismisses as weakness into one of the most extraordinary forms of human mastery. Kindness without boundaries can be easily mistaken for weakness, and compassion without discernment can quickly become a source of exhaustion or even exploitation. Many empaths fall into the trap of believing that to be truly kind, they must always say yes, always give, always accommodate the needs and emotions of others, even at the cost of their own well-being. Yet true power does not come from unlimited giving. It comes from intentional giving, from the ability to love and support without losing oneself in the process. Boundaries are not walls. They are the bridges that allow compassion to flow with strength and purpose. They define where your energy begins and ends. And by establishing them, a super empath transforms their kindness from scattered goodwill into a force of real impact. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It communicates that your energy, time, and emotions are valuable. The world may try to convince you that saying no is selfish, but in reality, boundaries are the very foundation of sustainable empathy. When you know your limits and honor them, your kindness is no longer reactive. It becomes proactive, intentional, and guided by clarity rather than guilt. Boundaries do not diminish your compassion, they refine it. They allow you to give from fullness rather than scarcity. When your cup is full, your giving carries nourishment and vitality. When it is empty, even the most well-intentioned endiness can become strained, resentful, or hollow. Boundaries also protect the integrity of your emotions. Without them, empaths are vulnerable to absorbing not only the feelings of others, but also their fears, anger, and negativity. Over time, this emotional overload can erode self-confidence, blur identity, and even lead to burnout. The super empath recognizes that their power lies in discernment, in understanding what is theirs to carry and what belongs to another. By clearly defining the line between personal responsibility and external influence, they retain clarity, energy, and focus. They can choose when to intervene, when to listen, and when to step back, all without guilt. This is the quiet mastery of emotional sovereignty, where compassion is guided by wisdom rather than compulsion. Boundaries transform compassion into influence. When kindness is given intentionally, it carries authority. People are drawn to those who give from a place of strength rather than obligation. They respect the empath who knows when to engage and when to pause, who offers support without becoming enmeshed in another's chaos. This discernment communicates confidence and inner power. It creates a magnetic presence, one that others naturally gravitate toward, trust, and seek guidance from. Boundaries, in essence, amplify the reach and effectiveness of empathy, turning emotional sensitivity into a structured, impactful force. Establishing boundaries also fosters self-growth and inner alignment. By honoring their own needs, empaths cultivate self-awareness, self-respect, and resilience. They learn to listen to the quiet voice of intuition that signals when energy is being drained or when engagement is truly necessary. Each boundary becomes a reflection of self-knowledge, a conscious act of prioritizing purpose and authenticity over blind altruism. Through this practice, empathy evolves from reactive emotional labor into a conscious, deliberate practice of power, grounded in integrity and intentionality. Moreover, boundaries create space for sustainable relationships. When empaths give without limits, they often attract dependency, manipulation, or imbalance. By defining limits with clarity and compassion, they model healthy interactions and teach others the value of respect and reciprocity. Relationships grounded in boundaries are stronger, more balanced, and mutually enriching. Kindness is no longer a one-sided effort. It becomes a shared exchange that nurtures all involved, fostering trust, loyalty, and deeper connection. Ultimately, boundaries are the lens through which compassion is refined into power. They transform raw empathy into structured influence, prevent emotional depletion, and elevate kindness from reactive generosity to intentional mastery. They allow the empath to act decisively, give meaningfully, and create ripples of change without compromising their own well-being. In this balance lies the true strength of the super empath, the ability to end love without losing themselves, to impact lives without surrendering their identity, and to wield kindness as a force that is both purposeful and unstoppable. Emotional awareness is the foundation upon which true influence is built. It is the quiet force that separates reactive responses from deliberate action and passive observation from transformative leadership. A super empath understands that influence is not about asserting control over others or demanding attention. It is about understanding, connecting, and responding in ways that align with truth and purpose. When you are deeply aware of your own emotions and the emotions of those around you, you gain access to a kind of insight that allows you to navigate any situation with clarity, precision, and impact. This awareness transforms every interaction into an opportunity for meaningful engagement and every challenge into a platform for growth. To cultivate emotional awareness, the empath first turns inward. They recognize that understanding others begins with understanding self. They examine their own triggers, patterns, and emotional landscapes with honesty and courage. By observing their reactions, fears, and desires, they learn not only what moves them, but also how these internal forces shape the way they perceive the world. This self-knowledge is the first step toward mastery. It allows the empath to remain grounded and present, even in emotionally charged situations, and prevents the emotional energy of others from overwhelming or manipulating them. In essence, self-awareness is the anchor that stabilizes the empath's influence. Once grounded in self-awareness, the super empath turns outward with intention. They observe the subtle emotional currents in others, the micro-expressions, the tone of voice, the unspoken words, and the body language that reveals more than words ever could. This deep perception allows them to understand not just what people are saying, but what they truly feel, what they need, and what drives their behavior. In doing so, the empath can respond with precision, addressing core concerns rather than surface-level complaints. Influence, in this sense, is not about persuasion through argument or coercion. It is about resonance, alignment, and authenticity. People feel seen and understood, and in that recognition, they are naturally drawn to listen, trust, and follow. Emotional awareness also fosters emotional regulation, which is essential for influence. Understanding feelings is one thing, but managing them is another. A super empath does not allow emotions, either their own or others, to dictate their actions. Instead, they observe, process, and respond intentionally. This creates a sense of calm authority that is magnetic. When others see someone who remains composed in the face of tension or adversity, they are reassured, guided, and inspired. The empath's presence becomes a stabilizing force, and their influence spreads quietly without force or demand. Another dimension of influence through emotional awareness is empathy-driven decision-making. The super empath recognizes that every choice carries emotional weight, not just practical consequences. By factoring in the human element, the feelings, motivations, and reactions of those involved, they make decisions that are more comprehensive, compassionate, and effective. This approach inspires loyalty, cooperation, and alignment, because people naturally respond to leadership that honors their humanity. Emotional awareness allows influence to be exercised ethically, powerfully, and sustainably. Moreover, the empath who cultivates emotional awareness can navigate complex social dynamics with grace. They understand conflict before it erupts, sense misunderstandings before they escalate, and intuitively know how to communicate in ways that foster clarity and connection. Their ability to read emotional atmospheres allows them to guide conversations, mediate disputes, and create environments where people feel safe, respected, and motivated. Influence, in this sense, is not imposed. It emerges organically from understanding, insight, and emotional intelligence. Ultimately, emotional awareness transforms the super empath into a catalyst for change. It allows them to act with intentionality, respond with clarity, and lead with authenticity. Influence is no longer about control or dominance. It becomes the natural consequence of being deeply attuned to oneself and others. By mastering this skill, the empath wields a quiet power, one that inspires, guides, and uplifts, while remaining aligned with purpose and integrity. Through emotional awareness, kindness becomes authority, sensitivity becomes wisdom, and empathy becomes an unstoppable force for transformation, not healing. Through presence is one of the most profound abilities of a true super empath. It is not about fixing someone's problems, giving advice, or offering solutions. It is about being fully available, fully attentive, and fully connected. It is the quiet, invisible power of showing up in a way that allows another person to feel seen, heard, and understood. Presence communicates more than words ever can. It signals safety, trust, and validation. To a hurting soul, to someone burdened with pain or confusion, genuine presence is often more restorative than any external remedy. This ability to heal without action, to soothe without intervention, is a hallmark of the empath who has mastered the divine principle that connection itself is transformative. The first layer of this power lies in attentiveness. A super empath listens not just to what is being said, but to what is left unsaid. They hear the emotions behind the words, the subtle shifts in tone, the tremor in a voice, the pauses between sentences, and the body language that speaks volumes. They can sense anxiety, grief, or fear before it is articulated, and they respond with an energy that acknowledges the depth of that experience. They're attent. Ion is not superficial, it is fully immersive, a conscious act of presence that communicates. I see you, I feel you, and you are not alone. This kind of recognition alone has a healing effect because it breaks the isolation that so often accompanies pain. Healing through presence also requires emotional grounding. A super empath must first anchor themselves in their own energy and stability. Being present for another without absorbing or being overwhelmed by their emotions demands discipline, awareness, and inner fortitude. When an empath is grounded, their presence becomes a stabilizing force for others. People naturally gravitate toward them, sensing calm, clarity, and reassurance. This presence does not judge, criticize, or try to control. It simply holds space, allowing the other person to process their emotions, gain perspective, and find strength within themselves. Another critical element of this healing power is patience. True presence is not rushed. It does not demand immediate resolution or quick fixes. The super empath understands that healing is a process, not an event. By offering time and space without expectation, they allow emotions to unfold naturally. They provide a container in which others can express vulnerability safely, without fear of judgment or rejection. In doing so, they create an environment where transformation can occur organically, where people can confront their pain, understand it, and emerge stronger on the other side. Presence is also inherently empathetic. The super empath mirrors understanding in ways that are subtle yet profound. They convey that every feeling is valid. Every experience matters, and every struggle is acknowledged. This affirmation is empowering. Many people suffer silently because they feel unseen or invalidated. When a super empath shows up fully, the very act of being present communicates love, respect, and acceptance. It reassures the wounded, the anxious, and the doubtful that they are valued and understood, which in itself is deeply healing. Moreover, healing through presence creates a ripple effect. The calm, compassionate energy of the empath spreads subtly to others, influencing their mood, their mindset, and even their behavior. People are drawn into this space of calm and clarity, and they begin to reflect it outward. In a world often filled with chaos, stress, and disconnection, the empath becomes a beacon, a source of stability and emotional renewal for those around them. This influence is quiet but extraordinarily potent, transforming relationships, communities, and even organizations without force or agenda. Ultimately, healing through presence is a demonstration of divine wisdom in action. It is the understanding that to be fully there for another human being is one of the greatest gifts one can offer. It is a power rooted in compassion, emotional intelligence, and authenticity. It reminds us that influence and transformation do not always require words, solutions, or heroic acts. Sometimes the simple act of being present, fully, genuinely, and without expectation is enough to heal, uplift, and empower. In the way, the super empath turns their sensitivity into a source of profound strength, demonstrating that true power is not about control, but about connection, understanding, and love made visible through the quiet, Extraordinary presence of the heart, sensitivity, is often misunderstood as fragility. People see those who feel deeply, who experience life in vivid emotional intensity, and they assume weakness. Yet what is often perceived as vulnerability can, in truth, be transformed into one of the most remarkable forms of resilience. The super empath understands that sensitivity is not a flaw to be corrected, but a strength to be harnessed. It is the raw material from which courage, patience, and fortitude are forged. Life presents challenges to those who feel deeply with greater intensity, yet these very challenges are the crucible in which the empath's inner strength is refined and strengthened. Sensitivity is the doorway to resilience because it allows one to process, learn from, and rise above life's trials in a profoundly conscious way. The first step in this transformation is awareness. The super empath does not resist their feelings, nor do they attempt to numb themselves against the intensity of experience. Instead, they recognize that emotions, even the painful ones, carry important messages. Anger, sadness, disappointment, fear. These are not simply obstacles, but signals, guiding the empath toward understanding themselves and the world around them. By acknowledging emotions, without judgment, the empath cultivates the capacity to navigate life with wisdom rather than avoidance. Each emotional wave is seen as an opportunity to practice endurance, to strengthen inner balance, and to cultivate a deeper sense of self-awareness. Resilience also arises from the practice of integration. The super empath learns to absorb intense emotions without being overwhelmed by them. They process pain instead of suppressing it, reflect on experiences rather than being consumed by them, and transform emotional energy into constructive action. This integration allows sensitivity to become a source of insight and problem-solving rather than a trigger for paralysis or despair. In this way, the empath's heightened awareness becomes a tool for navigating life's complexities with grace and composure, turning what could be perceived as weakness into an extraordinary form of power. Another dimension of resilience is adaptability. Because empaths experience life so intensely, they become intimately familiar with change, uncertainty, and emotional fluctuation. Rather than fearing these shifts, the super empath learns to move with them, to remain grounded while emotions ebb and flow, and to find stability amidst chaos. This flexibility is the hallmark of resilience. It allows the empath to respond to challenges creatively, strategically, and with a sense of calm authority that others often lack. Where others may crumble under pressure, the empath's sensitivity enables him to see multiple perspectives, anticipate challenges, and respond in ways that foster growth rather than conflict. Resilience is also strengthened through self-compassion. The empath understands that deep sensitivity can lead to self-criticism, doubt, and the feeling of being overwhelmed. By practicing self-kindness and nurturing their own emotional needs, they reinforce their inner strength. Self-compassion acts as a protective shield, preventing burnout and enabling sustained engagement with life and others. It teaches the empath that being sensitive does not require them to sacrifice their own well-being for the sake of others. On the contrary, by honoring their emotional experience, they cultivate a durable, renewable energy that fuels both personal growth and the capacity to uplift others. Finally, turning sensitivity into resilience cultivates courage. It takes courage to feel deeply in a world that often dismisses emotion. It takes courage to face emotional pain rather than avoid it, to hold space for others without being consumed, and to live authentically despite societal pressures to conform. The empath who masters this courage becomes a beacon of strength for others. Their resilience is visible not in the absence of vulnerability, but in the ability to embrace vulnerability with awareness, integrity, and purpose. It demonstrates that sensitivity and strength are not opposites. They are intertwined, two sides of the same coin. Through this transformation, sensitivity becomes a guiding force rather than a hindrance. It allows the super empath to navigate life with insight, compassion, and grounded strength. Challenges no longer intimidate, they teach. Pain no longer paralyzes, it empowers. Every intense emotion, every difficult experience becomes an opportunity to build inner fortitude and wisdom. In this alchemy of sensitivity into resilience, the super empath discovers a power that is profound, enduring, and uniquely their own. The ability to feel deeply, recover gracefully, and thrive courageously no matter the circumstances. Kindness in its raw form is beautiful, but untethered kindness can sometimes lack direction or impact. Many people are kind simply because it feels good, or because they hope to receive something in return, or because they are trying to meet societal expectations. Yet the super empath understands that true transformative kindness is never random. It is purpose-driven. Purpose-driven kindness aligns compassion with intention, vision, and higher principles. It is the difference between fleeting gestures and lasting transformation. When kindness is rooted in purpose, it becomes a force that not only touches hearts, but also inspires action, shapes environments, and elevates communities. At the heart of purpose-driven kindness lies clarity of vision. The super empath knows what they value, what they stand for, and what they wish to cultivate in the world. They do not scatter their energy on every issue or pour themselves into relationships and causes without discernment. Instead, they channel their compassion where it will create the most meaningful impact. By aligning their kindness with purpose, they ensure that every act, no matter how small, contributes to a larger vision. This intentionality transforms kindness from simple generosity into a powerful instrument for change. Purpose-driven kindness also requires self-awareness. The empath must understand their own strengths, boundaries, and resources. They cannot give effectively if they are depleted, overwhelmed, or disconnected from their own needs. By cultivating awareness of what they can genuinely offer, whether it is time, energy, emotional support, or guidance, they ensure that their kindness is sustainable and authentic. Purpose-driven kindness is not about martyrdom. It is about strategic generosity that maximizes both impact and personal integrity. When an empath acts from this space, their kindness resonates deeply, touching lives in ways that feel profound and lasting. Another dimension of purpose-driven kindness is alignment with values. The super empath acts in accordance with their core principles rather than succumbing to external pressure or performing acts of goodwill for recognition. Our compassion is intentional because it reflects their understanding of what is right, meaningful, and impactful. They give in ways that honor both themselves and those they serve, creating a harmony between action and intention. This alignment imbues every act of kindness with a depth of authenticity that others can feel, fostering trust, connection, and influence without manipulation. Purpose-driven kindness is also inherently transformative because it inspires others. When people witness acts of compassionate action that are deliberate and intentional, they are moved not only by the act itself, but by the principle behind it. The super empath becomes a living example of how one can engage with the world with integrity, vision, and heart-centered power. Their kindness encourages others to rise to their own potential, to act with awareness, and to contribute meaningfully. In this way, the ripple effect of purpose-driven kindness extends far beyond the initial gesture, creating a chain reaction of positive influence and growth. Moreover, purpose-driven kindness elevates the empath's own life. It transforms everyday actions into expressions of meaning, giving their existence a sense of direction and fulfillment. Life becomes not just about surviving or reacting to circumstances, but about contributing to a larger tapestry of impact. Each compassionate act, when aligned with purpose, reinforces the empath's sense of mission, strengthens their resilience, and amplifies their capacity to create positive change. Ultimately, purpose-driven kindness is the alchemy that converts simple empathy into extraordinary influence. It ensures that sensitivity is not wasted, that compassion does not falter, and that love does not dissipate without consequence. By giving with intention, aligning actions with values, and channeling energy toward meaningful goals, the super empath wields a kind of power that is invisible yet undeniable. Their kindness becomes not just an act of giving, but a deliberate expression of purpose, a guiding light that heals, inspires, and transforms the world. The most profound forms of power are often invisible. True influence is rarely loud, aggressive, or domineering. Instead, it flows quietly, subtly, and irresistibly from the strength of presence, clarity, and understanding. The super empath embodies this principle. Their power is not measured by authority or control, but by the depth of connection they cultivate and the way they shape the energy around them. This is the quiet power of influence, a force that moves hearts, minds, and lives without coercion, demand, or the need for recognition. It is a power rooted in authenticity, emotional intelligence, and unwavering alignment with truth. At the core of this quiet influence is understanding. The super empath sees beneath the surface of interactions, perceiving the unspoken emotions, hidden fears, and subtle motivations that drive behavior. They do not impose their will, but instead respond with insight and clarity, guiding others through awareness rather than instruction. This kind of influence is profoundly magnetic because it does not threaten the autonomy of those they encounter. People instinctively feel safe, understood, and valued in the presence of someone who comprehends them deeply. Influence, in this sense, is a byproduct of connection, not manipulation. Another critical dimension of this power is consistency. Influence grows from reliability, integrity, and the quiet demonstration of principles through action. The super empath does not speak in grandiose proclamations or demand obedience. They live in alignment with their values. And through that alignment, their energy resonates. Others notice the calm authority, the unwavering presence, and the intentionality behind each action. Trust is built not through persuasion, but through demonstration. People are drawn to someone whose life reflects clarity, compassion, and wisdom, and in that trust lies the deepest form of influence. Patience is also central to the quiet power of a super empath. Influence is not instantaneous. It cannot be forced or rushed. It requires attentiveness, timing, and discernment. The empath waits for the right moments, recognizes when their input is needed, and chooses silence when their presence alone is sufficient. This patience is a form of strength, signaling confidence and control over both their own energy and the flow of relationships. Those who rush or push may see only superficial results. But the super empath cultivates lasting, meaningful impact by honoring the natural rhythms of human connection. The ability to listen deeply amplifies influence further. True influence does not come from speaking, instructing, or imposing. It comes from understanding. The super empath listens with full attention, absorbing the nuances of emotion and intent. This deep listening allows them to respond in ways that address real needs, resonate with truth, and inspire reflection. By reflecting back insight, reassurance, or guidance, they create a sense of alignment in others that is subtle yet profoundly transformative. Their influence spreads not through authority, but through understanding and the capacity to meet people exactly where they are. Influence is also reinforced by authenticity. The super empath's power is inseparable from their integrity. Because they act from alignment with their inner truth, others recognize and respect it. People instinctively respond to authenticity because it offers certainty in a world of ambiguity. When an empath speaks, acts, or leads from this place, it carries weight far beyond the superficial, commanding attention not through volume, but through resonance. The energy of truth and integrity is inherently influential, creating a magnetic presence that cannot be ignored. Finally, the quiet power of influence lies in its subtle ripple effect. The super empath shapes environments and relationships through energy, example, and presence. They inspire without demanding, guide without instructing, and uplift without overstepping. Their influence creates a network of change that spreads organically, touching hearts, transforming perspectives, and encouraging growth. This is the ultimate demonstration of strength, to shape the world profoundly without the need for recognition, reward, or dominance. In this way, the super empath becomes a force of quiet transformation. They demonstrate that real power is not about loud assertion, but about alignment, insight, and the ability to move others through presence, compassion, and authenticity. Influence is not taken, it is given, and it is strongest when it is invisible yet undeniable. The super empath wields this subtle force with grace, turning sensitivity into authority, compassion into guidance, and connection into enduring impact. Through this quiet mastery, they teach the world that the softest voice, the gentlest presence, and the most attuned heart can shape reality more profoundly than any loud declaration ever could. Absolutely. Here are 2 concise lines for thank you and goodbye. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. Your time and presence mean more than words can express. May your path ahead be filled with light, strength, and endless growth. Goodbye for now. If you want, I can also give 3 to 4 alternative versions that feel more uplifting and motivational.